When I saw the news that China had sanctioned 20 US defense contractors and their core executives, only one sentence came to mind: accurate strikes, heavy blows, fully justified. Precise punishment is, in itself, the clearest language. This is the tough stance a major power must show when its bottom line is crossed. Not long ago, the United States set a historical record for arms sales to Taiwan. Everyone was waiting to see how China would respond. Now, after 10 days of silence, the countermeasures have arrived right on schedule. Since 2010, when the United States launched its so-called Asia-Pacific rebalancing strategy against China, the slogans may have changed, but containment of China has never stopped and has only intensified. Even as Washington now claims it wants to shift its strategic focus back to the Western Hemisphere, its pressure and suppression of China continue to escalate quietly, especially on the Taiwan issue, where the White House has begun to reveal its true intentions. Just days ago, the US announced the $11.1 billion arms sale to Taiwan, a move that completely angered China. The Taiwan issue lies at the very core of China's core interests, and represents the first and most inviolable red line in China-US relations. This latest U.S. arms sale to China's Taiwan region worth $11.1 billion includes 82 HIMARS high-mobility rocket artillery systems and other long-range precision strike weapons, a serious violation of the One China principle and the 3 China-US joint communiques. Do not underestimate HIMARS. Once fitted with missiles, its range can reach 300 to 400 kilometers. Combined with the 29 systems previously sold by the US, this means Taiwan authorities would possess 111 HIMARS launchers in total. At its narrowest point, the Taiwan Strait is only just over 100 kilometers wide, meaning HIMARS could directly threaten China's Fuzhou interior. Faced with U.S. arms sales to Taiwan, China would never stand idly by. As a result, the toughest sanctions followed immediately. Under the Anti-Foreign Sanctions Law, China decisively imposed targeted countermeasures against 20 U.S. defense companions and 10 related senior executives. This was not only a firm and forceful response, but also a crucial step for China to demonstrate strategic resolve and actively shape rules in global geopolitical competition. In terms of strength, scope, and methods, this round of sanctions clearly exceeds all previous actions, marking that China is now fighting back against the US with far fewer constraints. First, unprecedented sanctions, striking at the heart of the US military-industrial complex. The announced sanctions list is highly targeted and destructive. The 20 named companies include not only traditional defense giants such as Northrop Grumman and Boeing's St. Louis, Missouri division, but also firms like L3 Harris Maritime Services, Gibbs & Cox, which assisted Taiwan in building Perry-class frigates, Teledyne UAV, Lazarus AI, Epirus, and Blue Force Technologies. The 20 named companies include not only traditional defense giants, such as Northrop Grumman and Boeing's St. Louis, Missouri division, but also firms like L3 Harris Maritime Services, Gibbs & Cox, which assisted Taiwan in building Perry-class frigates, Teledyne UAV, Lazarus AI, Epirus, and Blue Force Technologies. These companies focus on cutting-edge fields such as naval warfare, unmanned systems, artificial intelligence, and electronic warfare. Though differing in size, they are deeply embedded in the US military's modern combat system, and serve as critical nodes supporting new doctrines like distributed lethality and mosaic warfare. Sanctioning them precisely severs the nerve endings of US military technological iteration and battlefield deployment. Crucially, the sanctions freeze their assets in China and prohibit any organization or individual from conducting transactions or cooperation with them. At the same time, 10 senior executives face asset freezes, transaction bans, and entry restrictions. This dual-track approach companies, plus individuals effectively blocks attempts to evade sanctions via offshore structures or third-party channels. The U.S. military-industrial complex is deeply dependent on global supply chains, with structural vulnerabilities in key resources such as rare earths and superhard materials. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, each F-35 fighter jet requires approximately 400 kilograms of rare earth materials. China controls over 90% of global rare earth refining capacity, with more than 95% dominance in heavy rare earths. This round of sanctions, combined with China's prior licensing controls on medium and heavy rare earth exports, directly strikes these defense companies at their most vital pressure points. Media reports indicate that some Raytheon radar production lines have already been forced to scale back due to material shortages, and F-35 assembly schedules have been delayed. This is the real-world manifestation of China's asymmetric counter-strike strategy. Second, compared to past sanctions, a clear strategic upgrade and systematic counteroffensive. Historically, China's sanctions against the U.S. have evolved from isolated measures to systematic, precision-based actions. In earlier stages, when Sino-U.S. rivalry was less intense, China primarily relied on diplomatic protests or symbolic countermeasures. In recent years, however, it has built a legalized and institutionalized toolkit for retaliation. The Anti-Foreign Sanctions Law, enacted in 2021, provided a solid legal foundation for such actions. This latest round of sanctions was implemented within days of the U.S. announcing its $11.1 billion arms sale, demonstrating unprecedented speed and deterrent power. More importantly, this was not an isolated move, but part of a multi-dimensional countermeasure system China has been building. Since 2023, China has imposed export controls on superhard materials, rare earth refining equipment, medium and heavy rare earths, and high-performance lithium batteries, forming a tightly linked strategic combination. Sanctioning 20 defense companies represents an extension of this system into the political and security domains. China has sent a crystal-clear signal to the world. It will no longer remain passively defensive in the economic sphere, but will integrate resource advantages, industrial strength, and political resolve to create a proactive you fight your way, I fight mine strategic posture. This systematic counteroffensive means that every U.S. arms sale to Taiwan will carry far greater costs than expected, not just lost contracts, but cascading disruptions across the entire defense supply chain. Looking ahead, this pressure will only intensify. Third, more countermeasures ahead. China holds multiple strategic trump cards. Faced with a $11.1 billion U.S. arms sale involving long-range systems like HIMARS, China's response will not stop here. Based on current strategic conditions, potential next steps include: first, deeper dynamic control over the entire rare earth supply chain, using precision surgical strikes. China controls 99% of global heavy rare earth refining capacity and can dynamically adjust export quotas, purity standards, and end-user verification for specific elements such as dysprosium and terbium, essential for F-35 engine alloys. This ensures precision strikes on military production while minimizing spillover effects on civilian industries. Second, accelerating military modernization to shatter using force for independent solutions. The PLA is rapidly deploying J-35 stealth carrier-based fighters, Type 055 10,000-ton destroyers, and strengthening asymmetric capabilities such as ASD-F-17 hypersonic missiles and WZ-8 high-altitude UAVs. Recently, the Jiushan UAV also completed its maiden flight. These new quality combat capabilities ensure that in any contingency, Taiwan's command, communications, radar, and firepower nodes could be swiftly neutralized, rendering the US-funded Porcupine strategy meaningless in real combat. Third, expanding defense cooperation with the global south. Chinese drones, HQ series air defense systems, and VT-4 main battle tanks have proven themselves in the Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia. China's system-level land and air combat capabilities, demonstrated in the India-Pakistan conflict, have drawn global attention. Deepening defense ties with global South nations not only generates stable economic returns, but also builds international support for China's positions, gradually weakening U.S. dominance in the global arms market. Fourth, strengthening legal and financial countermeasures. China may further refine enforcement rules under the Anti-Foreign Sanctions Law and impose joint liability on financial institutions, insurers, and logistics providers that facilitate arms sales to Taiwan. At the same time, expanding the use of CIPS and local currency settlements will reduce dependence on the dollar system and provide stronger financial infrastructure for retaliation. China could also lawfully consider boarding and inspection measures against vessels transporting U.S. weapons to Taiwan. Fourth, in global geopolitical competition, China is reshaping order. The United States seeks to arm Taiwan, the Philippines, and Japan to replicate a so-called Ukraine model in East Asia. Its fundamental miscalculation lies in underestimating China's resolve and capacity. China is the only country possessing all industrial category as accorded by the United Nations, with unmatched manufacturing resilience, market scale, and resource coordination. While the U.S. struggles with deindustrialization, fiscal deficits, and social fragmentation, China leverages a new type whole-of-nation system to drive a virtuous cycle from research to production to market feedback. This capability is something the United States simply cannot match today. China's military, technological, and production capacity will only continue to grow, especially as civil-military integration deepens. Even private Chinese firms can now participate cost-effectively in hypersonic weapons-related production. While the U.S. still lacks mature hypersonic deployment, that is the gap. The U.S. lacks the industrial capacity to arm all the conflicts it provokes worldwide. China, by contrast, can leverage its system advantages to reshape regional and international order. Just as in combating telecom fraud, China relied not on military force but on political, economic, diplomatic, and joint law enforcement cooperation, successfully restructuring regional order and shrinking criminal space. This sharply contrasts with U.S. hegemony in Latin America, where even military interventions fail to solve drug problems best. The goal is resource extraction, not solutions. Between China and the U.S., who truly has the ability to shape regional order? I have full confidence in China's path. The U.S. path, by contrast, is destined to fail. Take the recent Thailand-Cambodia tensions. One trigger was telecom fraud harming Thailand's tourism and national interests. Even then, China chose mediation and dialogue, not provocation or escalation like the U.S. That is the mindset of a major power. The U.S. frequently seeks regime change. China consistently adheres to non-interference in political solutions. This aligns with the future logic of international relations. As the U.S. pushes the world toward confrontation, China advances the vision of a community with a shared future for mankind, offering alternatives to zero-sum hegemony. If the U.S. persists in obstructing China's reunification, it will pay a heavy price not only economically, but through the collapse of its credibility and leadership. When China is forced to act to defend its core interests, the instigator will inevitably pay the price. Rising winds test the pillar of the tide. China's heavy punch is only the beginning. Against continued U.S. provocation, China still has its real moves ahead.